Our story for Christmas, so we begin bringing you that.
And of course, it's the last weekend in Doha for the World Cup. We'll be joining Paul Hawkins, who's been there throughout. And later on in the show, we're going to be joined by football manager legend Harry Redknapp too. But as ever, we want to hear from you this morning, so if you want to get involved in the conversation, email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. But before we get started, here are the latest news headlines with Ray.
Good morning. 2 minutes past 10, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. NHS bosses are urging hospitals to free up beds ahead of planned industrial action by ambulance crews in England. They say it's vital that the government and unions talk urgently to resolve the pay dispute before the first day of action on the 21st of December. It comes after NHS data showed that 1 in 6 patients are now waiting more than an hour to be transferred from ambulance staff to A&E teams. Meanwhile, the head of Cancer Research UK is warning NHS strikes are putting survival rates at risk, with wait times already critical. The Nurses' Union is warning that the Health Secretary's macho negotiating style is hindering efforts to resolve their pay dispute. RCN General Secretary Pat Cullen says Steve Barclay undervalues the work of nurses because it's a 90% female profession. She's urging the Prime Minister to step in before the dispute engulfs the NHS. Commuters are facing more travel delays today as members of the RMT Rail Union continue their 48-hour strike. Trains are starting later than usual and finishing earlier, with some parts of the country having no service at all. Bus drivers in London are also continuing their 48-hour strike, adding to the travel disruption. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall told us there's currently no end in sight.
As we've seen all too regularly, whenever there are negotiations, especially with the rail unions, it never comes out in a good way. Whatever is offered by the government is sneered at as derisory and isn't going to hit the mark. So you do wonder, what is the number that Mick Lynch has in mind? What would he accept and what the country can afford? But it's quite clear that something needs to happen because the country is pretty much now ground to a halt.
More than a quarter of people expect to start the new year in debt. According to research by Tesco Bank, most believe it will take around 21 months to pay back what they owe. Those surveyed say they've borrowed money from family and friends and used overdrafts to cover energy bills and rent. GB News viewer Jess Barclay told us her family have had to work really hard to keep their finances in order.
With the year that we've had personally, we've had work issues, I've had health issues. At one point, the doctors wanted to sign me off work completely, and I was like, I can't do that. Now, moving forward, I want to make sure that my family is financially crisis-proof as much as it can be, and that we've got a really good buffer.
Police say a man and a woman arrested after 2 young boys were found dead in East London were known to the children. Emergency services were called to Cornwallis Road in Dagenham yesterday, where they discovered the boys aged 2 and 5. Both were already deceased. The man and woman were arrested separately in nearby locations and remain in custody. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings and are expecting ice for much of Scotland, the north and southwest and Wales today. It comes as blizzards are set to sweep across the north of the country this weekend. Temperatures could temporarily rise on Sunday. However, frost is expected to create difficult road conditions. Fine Gael leader Leo Varadkar will become Irish Taoiseach again today. He's replacing Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin as part of the rotating Taoiseach agreement within Ireland's coalition government. Mr Varadkar previously held the office from 2017 to 2020. The committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riots in the US is reportedly preparing to vote on 3 criminal charges against Donald Trump. If passed, they'll urge the US Justice Department to indict the former president with offences including insurrection. Discussions are also set to take place over what to do with Donald Trump's tax returns, which were obtained last month. An inhalable COVID-19 vaccine is now being administered in Beijing amid a wave of new cases. It comes as China begins to move away from its hard restrictions and massive testing. However, the US-based Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation is warning that lifting China's ultra-strict policies could cause over 1 million deaths in 2023. And Harry and Meghan will be invited to the King's coronation in May next year, according to the Daily Telegraph newspaper. That's despite the pair making damaging claims levelled at the royal family in their Netflix documentary series. The newspaper says the guest list is yet to be decided, but all family members are welcome. You're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Esther and Phil.
Thanks, Ray. Now, to look through the papers this morning, we're joined by Sean Bailey, member of the London Assembly, and TV chef and broadcaster Kevin Woodford. But before I go any further, as Ray was talking about King Charles III sending the invitation, quick answer, would you have invited Meghan and Harry, yes or no?
No.
Would you have invited?
Yes.
Yes. Phil?
No.
You?
Yes, I'd have tried to play them at the game. I would.
All.
OK, it's 2-all.
The viewers will have to be the decasting vote.
Yeah,
so you'll have to tell us what you think.
I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to. It would have been written, you know, in a begrudged fashion, but I think I would have...
Forget the fact that it was my son. I'd just be looking, it's my son. I want to make up with him.
Yeah, but it's a state occasion, not a family occasion.
Everything for me, when my son's involved, it's my son. I don't care if it's state.
Got us going here now.
Yeah, totally. I just thought I'd ask that. What would you do at home? But most people like me be a begrudged invitation.
I'd bring him back, Sean. I partly agree with you.
Don't be deserting me now. Blimey, you won't want to be in the trenches with him, would you? He's abandoning me.
Hear the argument. I'd bring them back, so you're welcome. And then I would take their passports away from them and strip them from their Dutch and whatever it's called.
And get rid of
and
the
I'd
titles.
put them on a plane, along with lots of other people, right? And I'd send them away forever.
Oh, you see.
Because I don't want to see them in the newspapers. I watched the programme. I have to admit, I actually watched 6 hours of it.
Oh,
right?
I watched about 5.5.
Oh.
There you go.
All right, well, getting back onto the serious stuff. I just want to know. I just want to know if you'd have been
talking about deportation. OK, right. Boris Becker, who was, as you know, 6 times Grand Slam winner, fantastic tennis player. He was sentenced for 2.5 years for literally sort of hiding £2.5 million worth of loans and assets that he had rather than pay back debts. OK, he was released after 8 months of that sentence. The minute he was released, he was deported. He was gone. He's on a plane, private, right, and off he goes. He's gone, right? Fantastic, right? OK. Now, the reason he was deported was through a scheme called the Fast Track Scheme for deportation. OK, and this is to do with foreign criminals, right, who don't have British citizenship. They can be deported. However, I found it surprising, right, to read in one of the papers this week that at the end of September this year, walking the streets of our country, foreign criminals numbered 11,769, right, released from prison but not deported, more than 3,700 living in the community for more than 5 years after completing the jail terms, OK? And here's the key. Unless they agree to leave Britain voluntarily, they should be held in immigration detention at the end of the jail term, OK, ready to be deported. But they can only be held if there's a reasonable prospect of imminent removal. This is beyond me. I fail to understand how, in this country, we could have this happening.
Well, it's kind of quite easy. If they're leaving prison, you could sort of take them straight from the prison to the shuttle bus to get them out on a plane to get them out of the country.
The reason we have this is because any government of any stripes, any time it tries to do anything with people, we conflate criminals, we conflate economic migrants with people seeking asylum. Then we end up in court, and then the government gets accused of U-turns. We then go back to the Home Office, who then look confused, and nothing is done. So really, it's not just the government, it's actually all these people who bring all these cases that are they're not in the interest of the British public. They should be held to account as well as the government.
But simple here, criminals, a judge has sentenced them, they've been in prison. I would say it's quite simple to get them straight from prison to the airport and out.
It's the law. I mean, to be fair, the last Labour government passed the law that if you were a foreign national and you were sent to prison for a term of a year or more, you were automatically deported on your release. That's in the law. It was the last Labour government who passed that law.
Okay.
And I'm with you, Kevin. Why on earth is it not happening? I mean, you might argue that they should be deported however long the sentence is, but the law is they get sent to prison for more than a year.
Some people would also say, actually, why have them and pay for them in our prison? Straight away, as soon as you've been sentenced, you can get out and have that sentence in your own prison. Phil, what are you looking at?
Well, I hate political correctness. You may not know, but you may not know.
Realise
no.
that,
I mean, I was for quite a long time the parliamentary spokesman for the campaign against political correctness. So it always gets my blood boiling. And there was one this week from my local area. From Shipley in my constituencies in West Yorkshire, and West Yorkshire Police, this story relates to. A white man applied for a job with West Yorkshire Police and was told we're only hiring women and minorities. And this was raised by Councillor Mark Thompson, who, with the Mayor of West Yorkshire, Tracy Brabin. And basically, the email that this applicant received said, West Yorkshire Police is currently underrepresented by women and people from ethnic minority backgrounds. In accordance with the Equality Act 2010, we offer those from underrepresented groups the opportunity to apply at any time, but obviously not everybody else. The Mayor of West Yorkshire, unbelievably, defended this policy. She said, when I became Mayor of West Yorkshire, I committed 100% to get West Yorkshire Police to reflect the communities we serve. And Alison Lowe has been an exceptional deputy mayor, leading the way, and as a woman of colour, she understands more than most that we have to build trust if we are to police by consent. That trust is built by representation. And the West Yorkshire Police said the force remains conscious that we have underrepresented groups who are currently people from ethnic minority backgrounds and families. Now, the key thing is then, they went on to say, West Yorkshire Police will always employ the best person for the job, who gives the best interview on the day or performs the best in the assessment, regardless of how they describe themselves on their application form. But that's no use if the only people who can actually get to the application form process are people from ethnic minorities and people who are women. Now, the bit I don't understand for the life of me is, I mean, when a police officer turns up to see you when you've had a burglary, if you're lucky enough to get a police officer, does anybody really care whether that police officer is a man or a woman, or whether they're white or from an ethnic minority? You just want a police officer. Why can't we just employ the best person for the job? And we should be colour-blind, gender-blind, everything else to me is irrelevant. Let's just get the best person for the job.
So there's a few things to look at. If you're from the black community, what happens is you then are subjected to more racism, because there's absolutely no way that man who experienced that has left that situation thinking, oh, I feel better about supporting black people. That's not going to happen. And I was born in this country. I'm 51 years old. I've had racism where we used to run away from the NF. There's an NF office at the top of our road. I feel race is a much bigger issue now than it was then. Wow. I feel that people are far more racist now than was then. It's because of issues like this. And let's be clear, if you want to support the black community, there's many other things you could do to get black police officers in and keep them in. There's much other things you can do. Doing this makes white middle-class guilt at the top of the system feel better.
Yeah. I've always said, when you do the positive discrimination card, it doesn't help the people who've got the job at the end of the day. So when they used to do it with women, I'd say, but they were the best person for the job. Yeah. The fact that you said only women could go to this, made the woman who got the job think she wasn't good enough, made all of her colleagues think she only got the job because she's a woman. It does not help the wider community.
The clue is in the title, discrimination. What you could do, you could go out to women of colour, to people of colour, and attract them in rather than barring other people from applying. It's it's a subtle but important.
I'd also say there's so many job vacancies at the moment. We're looking for so many people. There's 1.3 million job vacancies. You don't actually need to be segmenting the public in any way whatsoever.
Let me just take you back a little bit on this to about 20 years ago when I was in education as a head of a college. There was an instruction we were in a Labour-controlled area, and the instruction to us was that there was insufficient, the mix was not right. So we had to get that right. So we could only advertise for academic staff in the Star of Asian News and the Afro-Caribbean Times, OK? We had to go down the route because of the positive discrimination. I really, really struggled with that. Not because I didn't want to go down that road, but because two reasons. One, because I wasn't getting the applicants that I needed, right? And secondly, when we did, there was this whole thing that that individual felt as though, you know, he'd been cheated. He should have been in a competition with everybody else so that the best person got the job, you know?
Well, I think our viewers will probably have. So has this made this sort of positive discrimination, has it made this sort of community relationship even worse? And like I said, there's so many jobs out there, people not applying for them. We need all of them. Should I look? I'll tell you what I saw in the papers, and it was shoppers' rage against supermarkets that you saying scan receipt to exit policy. So Sainsbury's are doing the proof of purchase barrier. So if you don't have a receipt for your proof of purchase, you're not allowed out the shop. Now, it's not meant to be anything new, but people are going mad about this, saying we're being held hostage, the checking that we paid for things. But it comes because there's been an increase just between July and October this year of 16% in shoplifting, and it said Sainsbury's and Tesco's accounted for 40% of that shoplifting. Now, I personally don't see the problem there. I mean, you won't be able to say at the end of your purchase, do you want a receipt or not? You'll just have to get the receipt. I don't have a problem.
I mean, you can have a receipt, but it doesn't mean to say you've got everything that you've taken out of the shop with you on the receipts.
A spot check, and I'm sure they're not going to check everything, but what they're saying is that's a significant rise in shoplifting, and if you can't be honest enough, particularly at those self-scanning, one for you, one for me, a couple in the bag, that was a bit dear, that purchase, that one goes in the bag. Well, they've cottoned on to that. Now, don't get me wrong, the supermarkets got that because they didn't have to pay staff, didn't they? So they got rid of staff and they got them, and now we're finding that people aren't correctly declaring.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it makes sense. Look, because ultimately, shoplifting feels like a victimless crime, but all the supermarket does is put it on the price of everything. So it probably is useful that they check if people can't pay, you know, because we don't want to be locked in that downward spiral. People shoplift, they add cost. People shoplift, they add cost.
Maybe they should go back to having people on the checkouts.
Yeah, they should.
Maybe we should go back to that system. And, you know, I think that's what people really liked, isn't it?
But it's not quite the, if you've taken something out and the alarm goes off, now you're just not getting out the shop.
Oh, dear me.
Sean, what did you have?
So I've been looking at Britain's triple whammy. So we've got COVID, we've got flus, and, you know, Britain's under pressure and all this. And you look at this now, and there's been a massive rise in COVID cases, but it's been up to 220,000 a day. But the real thing about COVID is, what's the effect of COVID? You might have COVID, OK, but most people now, COVID manifests itself as a cold. So let's stop talking about COVID as if it's going to end the world. Flu as well. They're talking about flu as if it's new. As far as I remember, flu has always been around. We have peaks and troughs. If you look at it over a 20-year period, we have cures for it. Take the cure. But the real reason I brought this story up, because I think the newspapers now, the public discourse, is affecting the country's resilience. We constantly talk about what we should be hiding from, where you should be hiding, why we should be staying at home, what we should be striking about, and actually that is what's bringing our country down. It's not all these fears, it's not this little rise in COVID. For instance, they talk about flu, and they say there's 87 people in hospital this year on serious wards than there were, and there was one last year. 87 people is not a lot. No. That's not a lot in the context of a constituency. It certainly isn't a lot in the context of 70 million people. And I think the papers in particular are very, very guilty of talking this country down, and they're as much responsible for any recession we have as they like to say Liz is. Liz Truss is as less responsible for recession than the newspapers.
Oh, is it true? Are we frightened to do anything now for fear of catching a bug, for fear of what else could be round the corner? As you know, get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. That's gbviews at gbnews.uk. Obviously, Kevin and Sean will be staying with us. We'll see them a little bit later. But coming up, we will be discussing the abuse MPs get for taking maternity leave. We'll be speaking to MP Siobhan Bailey, who even had excrement left on her front doorstep. So don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back, it's 10:23. Now, female MPs have come forward to call for greater awareness of the importance of maternity leave after the MP Theo Clark revealed that she's received dozens of angry phone calls from constituents who berated her for taking time off after the birth of her child in August.
Here to speak about her own experiences taking maternity leave is Conservative MP for Stroud, Siobhan Bailey. Wonderful to see you there.
Good morning.
So when you got abuse, a bit like Theo there, for taking maternity leave, doing the most natural thing in the world, were you surprised, and what were some of the things people were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, but equally, it's kind of run-of-the-mill that we get so much abuse as MPs. So I had it as two-pronged. When I announced the pregnancy as a newly elected MP, had quite a few people saying it was outrageous, shouldn't have stood to be an MP if I was pregnant. Quite a lot of online nonsense and attacks. Then when the baby was born, we were in the absolute weeds of the pandemic. I'd been working 16-hour days. I was working going into labour, and still people were sort of suggesting, I'm contacting my team, I should go back to work, I need to get out of the hospital bed and answer emails, and it just went on and on, very similar to what Theo has reported in the newspapers this week.
And can I just say, Siobhan, yes, you were new to politics, but you're an accomplished lawyer before you came into the House.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, I mean, I'm in my 40s. We can't all choose our fertility. Do I want babies as an... Would I like to have had my babies younger? Yes, but that didn't happen. For some reason, knocking on doors for a year as a candidate and saying, get Brexit done, help my fertility, and I ended up pregnant.
Is that a Brexit bonus, a baby?
I think it might be a Brexit bonus that Jacob missed. But I think one of the things, ultimately underlying this, I don't know whether the trolls and the nonsense that we the people that send this nonsense realise that underlying this is a suggestion that women and women of childbearing age shouldn't stand for Parliament and shouldn't be MPs. And if that puts off other women coming in, we will be much poorer for it in Parliament as legislators and as in the country as well.
Do you think this view is literally just a tiny minority of people, Siobhan, or do you think that this view is shared a bit more widely than people might think?
I think it is a minority. Stroud, Gloucestershire, it's a kind place. I have amazing meetings, even when people disagree with me. It's a positive and kind place. But unfortunately, with online, you're always going to get idiots offline and online. But the ability for the cowardly keyboard warriors, it makes it a lot easier. I'm not sure whether they have those views about their own women and daughters, granddaughters in their own families. But ultimately, it's too easy just to attack at the moment. But I think it is a tiny minority. It's 2022. We're public servants. I know Theo was getting comments like, "We pay your wages, get back to work." I don't think people would be saying that to other public servants like female GPs, female, police officers that take time off for maternity leave.
I guess, Siobhan, the job of an MP is sort of different in the sense that for any other job you can do, somebody can cover while you're on maternity leave. When you're an MP, it's a lot harder to have things because, someone else can't go and speak in the chamber on your behalf and things like that. So it's slightly unique in that regard. I mean, did you ever feel at any point on maternity leave, did you ever feel that, my constituents are being shortchanged here?
So I took 4 weeks off so I took quite a short maternity leave. MPs can have up to a year off. It's very much a personal choice. I was in touch with my team constantly. That so much goes on behind the scenes in terms of correspondence, in terms of preparation in response. And if there was any urgent matters, I would be contacted immediately. You are right about not being able to go into the chamber if we're on maternity or paternity leave. I think that is right. People elect the MP, so they elect Siobhan Bailey to represent Stroud. I don't think somebody else should be going into Parliament and making laws. So it is quite a unique position. But equally, I go back to we have to adapt and make this work because ultimately we won't have women in Parliament. So what IPSA has done, the people that organise our office funding, etc., they allow MPs to get funding for a locum to do community work, assist with correspondence, assist with any casework that is increased while the MP is off. And what my colleagues in Gloucestershire, the other MPs, said that if anything happened, that they would speak up for Stroud in Parliament if I asked them to. So that there are workarounds.
And to be fair, Siobhan, I've seen so many pictures of you with your brand new born baby, you in your latter days of maternity out in your local community. But what I'd like to ask, is there anything you would like to see done by Facebook, by Instagram, by Twitter, wherever they are posting this vile abuse? Would you like to see something done by those social media platforms to stop this abuse?
Yeah, well, I think the Online Safety Bill is doing quite a lot of what is needed. So in terms of being able to report and have people have their accounts closed or have things taken down. I've done a lot of work on trying to tackle anonymous abuse. The government have accepted my proposals that we introduce verification because it's much more scary when people are getting attacked if it's anonymous. So I think there is quite a lot being done. But I think actually we just need to just be aware that ultimately, we do want women in Parliament. There's a lot of dads that have had babies in Parliament. Lots of my colleagues have had children. Nobody's attacking them. I think it's unfair. But I think to Philip's point, if constituents, if their core concern is the work being done, am I being represented? They're fair questions, but they can be asked in a reasonable and constructive way.
Just very quickly, Siobhan, just before you go, very quick if you can. I mean, one of the things that some people complain about is that MPs on maternity leave get full pay while they're on maternity leave, unlike other people who go on maternity leave. Do you think that causes some of the resentment and that why people think that that might be something that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to have absolute transparency about what MPs receive and don't receive and the choices, and then you can see the choices that each individual MP makes. I know there are always calls to tighten up and improve everybody's maternity leave, but ultimately, I think that I chose to take 4 weeks. I'm in a very, very busy marginal seat. It was the pandemic, so that's what worked for me. But
Siobhan Bailey.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say thank you so much for joining us today, because it is a big issue, big topic, and thank you for being so straight and speaking to us. Thank you. Bye. Because, like I say, the abuse she got.
It's unbelievable, isn't it,
left
really?
on her doorstep, all of this sort of, abuse online.
It's shocking, isn't it? It's shocking, isn't it?
Shocking and unnecessary. What do you think? Email us your views, what you think about that.
Now, there are strong opinions in favour and against strike action, but one of the most surprising stances is that of the Daily Express, which this week came out in support of the nurses who are currently taking industrial action.
We're joined by the political editor of the Express Online, David Maddox, to explain why. Over to you, David, why?
I think there's a pragmatic side to this, essentially. We're not obviously supporting all the strikes. We're not supporting all the strike because we're certainly not supporting the rail strikes and the postal strikes and things. But in the case of the nurses, there's an enormous amount of public sympathy for them. There's a feeling that their wages have been kept down unfairly over the last few years. And of course, a lot of these people were actually the genuine heroes of the pandemic, whatever we think of various parts of government policy and so forth. So that's why we're supporting it. But I should say, there's a difference between saying they should get 20% or 19%, which I'm not sure we're fully behind that. But what we're saying is that there needs to be a pragmatic solution to this. The government needs to sit down with these people.
I suppose, David, the other side of the equation is that the average pay of a nurse is around £34,000 a year, which is well above the sort of average wage in the UK. The government has agreed to the pay review body's recommendation on their pay in full. The government have increased funding for the NHS by 40% in real terms since 2010. And frankly, the government really hasn't got any money. So when you put all of that together, is it really justifiable for them to be going on strike for more pay?
Well, I don't think we're particularly happy about them going on strike, I have to say that. But what we're saying is that the two sides need to sit down and rattle out a solution on this. I mean, we have a genuine health crisis going on. We have a massive waiting list, partly thanks to the 2 years of the lockdown. We can't really have a situation where that just grows and grows and grows. People's lives are at stake, literally, on this. And there needs to be a pragmatic solution on it, and there needs to be a sensible outcome.
David, I know our viewers, and I think most of the country, looking at the array of different striking action, is far more sympathetic with the nurses' plight than anybody else's. They see that. And other people, I know Philip was there saying that the nurses' pay review body, that's what they came up with. But people are saying that was back in February. And what they need to do is ask for another pay review to see, actually, could you come up with not 19%, but could it be more like Scotland, 7%, 6%? Is there something, like anybody does, is negotiate? So what I'm understanding from you is you're not agreeing with the striking, you're more agreeing with them getting round a table and getting this situation resolved. Because I think as time goes by, I think the support for anybody striking will be diminishing.
Yes, it will, actually. And we've seen that with the train strikers. The early polling we did on the train strikes gave actually quite a remarkable amount of support for them. But that has dipped. We did one actually this week, which showed now that the majority of the country are against the rail strikes. And people are fed up. And I suspect, an awful lot, we've seen the lawyers go out on strikes. There's not much sympathy there, frankly. And my dockers and my postal workers and my teachers, I think, are coming up as well. So, but in this particular case, there's a genuine national emergency, health emergency, and what we want to see is a pragmatic solution, people to get around the table and sort it out.
David Maddox, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Now, we've got some views coming in, and we've got to say these. Sue, we were talking about these, if you don't show a receipt, you can't leave the shop. Checking you've paid barriers. Sue said, Waitrose in my area have blocked off the self-scanning unless it gets busy, exactly for that reason, because not enough staff to watch customers. The self-scan section might be better to jump the queue, but if you're putting things in your bag unnecessarily, they're closing it down because they've come to understand that's what people are doing. Shoplifting's on the increase.
And Andy says, with regards to the police, we have in the UK a Black and Asian Police Officers Association. Could you imagine the outrage if someone suggested starting a White Police Officers Association? Anything containing the word white is deemed racist in this so-called diverse country. Keep those views coming in. We love hearing them, reading them and reading them out.
But coming up, abandoned dogs have been writing to Santa Paws asking for a new owner this Christmas time. We love those heartwarming doggy stories for Christmas. So see you straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 10:40. Christmas is a time for giving. And this week, a story went viral in which rescue dogs were pictured sharing letters to so-called Santa Paws, asking for a home in 2023.
But what does rescuing a dog entail, and what can you do if you wanted to home a lonely puppy this festive season? We're now joined by Dr. Samantha Gaines from the RSPCA. Samantha, thank you for joining us. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, they used to put out a message saying a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. Is that still an important message for people to hear at Christmas time?
Yes, morning, absolutely. I mean, that still is absolutely critical, that, you know, this can be a time of year when people are thinking about bringing pets into their family as presents. But, you know, we would urge anyone that's thinking of doing that to make sure that they can absolutely provide what that animal needs for the, you know, duration of their life. So can they provide the financial commitment, take on the responsibility, just to make sure, you know, obviously we're in a very, very difficult time at the moment with the cost of living crisis, and we know that people are struggling. So now more than ever, it's super, super important that people do ask those questions before they actually take on that responsibility and bring a pet into their home.
So why are so many dogs writing to Santa Paws in need of an owner, a responsible owner at that?
I think it's a potentially a reflection of the times. You know, we've just come through the pandemic. We've obviously now got the cost of living crisis as well. And certainly for the RSPCA, we've seen an increase of 8% in terms of the number of animals that are coming into
during
our care.
lockdown an increase in people buying dogs? I mean, that went through the roof, didn't it? Exponential. Everybody bought them during lockdown, and now do they not want them?
I think what we've seen is sort of like just a bit of a perfect storm situation, to be honest. So you're absolutely right. During the COVID pandemic, people were in a situation where they thought that actually that would be a good time to bring pets into their home, particularly dogs. So we saw a big increase in first-time owners bringing them into their home. But I think what we've actually seen is through a change in people's circumstances, and that coupled with the cost of living crisis, it's really difficult for some people to carry on having a pet. And I think, you know, that some people are unfortunately in a really, really difficult situation and are having to make tough decisions. And so we are seeing, unfortunately, a number of animals coming into our care. We've had an 8% increase, and we are also seeing rehoming slow down as well. So this is partly why, you know, as a sector, we're urging people to think about adopting this year if they want to bring a pet into their home. We always obviously urge people to adopt, but it's even more so the case this year.
I mean, how big an increase do you get in people taking on pets at Christmas compared to other times of the year? I mean, do you get a huge spike in the number of animals that people take into their homes?
It's definitely one of the seasonal spikes that we see. So yes, Christmas does tend to be quite a popular time for people to think about adopting. And I think some people might be quite surprised that we do allow adoption to happen during Christmas. But I think, again, it's really important for us to remember that for some people, Christmas is this really crazy, chaotic time of year when actually it probably isn't the best time to bring a pet into your home. But for other people, it's a very quiet, peaceful time of year, and actually bringing a pet into your home at that time can be really, really good. So, you know, that's why adoption actually becomes really important, because we can work with people and with people that are looking to get their perfect match to make sure that we find an animal, and in particular if they're looking for a dog, one that will match their lifestyle and their circumstances to give them the best chance of, you know, having that great match and having successful rehoming, which is ultimately what we want.
Dr. Samantha Gaines, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Now, I got a little puppy at Christmas time many, many, many years ago, and that was because they'd been abandoned on one of my dad's work sort of sites, and it was a little sack that was wriggling and moving, and he brought it home, and I remember him saying there were just these two little balls of fluff, and he said, now we're only going to keep these for a few days until we find the owners. No, we had them for 17 years. So that was a little bundle of gorgeousness for Christmas, but these people are actually going to the RSPCA to get them.
If you were watching Stephen and Anne earlier, you'll have seen the little pug that was on there. I think that might have tempted a few people to get a dog at Christmas.
Absolutely.
He was very cute, wasn't he?
Cute but wriggly, ran everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there intergenerational unfairness? Is there a problem of that in our country? Or are we just pitching one generation against another? The Adam Smith Institute think tank has released a report saying there is intergenerational unfairness.
Here to tell us more is the Director of Operations at the Adam Smith Institute, Morgan Schondelmeyer. So I was surprised, I've got to say, that the Adam Smith Institute was talking about reducing intergenerational inequality. I'd never really associated the Adam Smith Institute with being that bothered about sort of levels of inequality before. So why are you so perturbed about this?
It's a really interesting one. As you say, it's not about pitting generations against each other. It's looking at the system that we've created, which creates incentives and allocates resources, and looks at the way in which that's actually inefficient. So it's not necessarily about fairness, although if we were to rebalance the system, you would have a more fair outcome. It's about the fact that we are holding the country back through our policies, which create inefficient outcomes. A misallocation of housing, misallocation of resources, underfunding.
So are you saying layer and layer of policies and laws and, tax benefits and incentives have created this, and you're trying to streamline it to get rid of all of those so it's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to look at how to rebalance society so that as we have an aging society, as we have people who are struggling to gain capital and to buy homes, we make sure that
There's a couple here that people might not be happy with. Means testing for the state pension.
Yeah.
How would you win the older population?
And getting rid of the pension triple lock.
Yeah. How would you win people over with this?
Yeah. These are not going to be popular policies for everyone. That is sure, but. One thing we did in the paper is we actually did a lot of polling of public opinion to figure out what are these kind of common grounds that we can look at. And a few things that we found is there's a lot more common ground on tax than you think there would be. On housing, people recognize more now than ever that it is harder for younger generations to buy houses than ever before. And on the pension side, that is certainly not going to be popular. It's going to be a very hard political decision, which is why it's not been done before. But the triple lock in particular is not something that's going to be sustainable as we have an aging population that's living longer, that's needing more intensive health and social care needs.
Do these go hand in hand with reducing taxes as well at the same time? I mean, are we streamlining everything out so these inequalities for everybody, even on different incomes? Are we getting rid of them as well, getting rid of some of the very high tax level we've got?
Well, absolutely. So some of the things that we recommend in the report are looking at stamp duty land tax, which is one of those taxes that misallocates resources. It makes it harder for people to move home. Another tax we look at is the income tax threshold. So unfreezing those and making sure that as inflation increases, income tax thresholds move with inflation so people aren't paying more tax than they otherwise would. These sort of things are a huge drag on the economy. And not only do they create this unfairness, they make us all poorer.
I want to ask you a question. If you had this conversation with your grandparents, what you plan to do, did they agree with you? Did you say, I'm planning on doing this, you will not have this, and I'll have that? Have you had this intergenerational family conversation before you put this report out?
It's really interesting because, as you say in the polling, a lot of people are realizing that this is increasingly the case. I mean, we saw a 14% increase in people understanding.
Didn't answer that, Bill. She hasn't been speaking to her grandparents.
I didn't answer because I don't have any living grandparents anymore.
But parents.
My parents, my parents understand that they're in a position that, they've been very lucky to be able to buy a house. The situation in America is a bit different. But as I say, this polling really shows that people are understanding that this is a long-term problem that we're going to have really drastic policies to fix. People want what's best for their children and grandchildren. And as we're seeing this kind of intergenerational gulf increase, they're realizing that actually what's good for me might not be good for my children and grandchildren. I think people are really coming around to the idea that we need to make some big reforms so that we can provide for the next generation.
Thank you.
Well, I've got to say one thing that I do agree in this report was about a personal development loan for all school leavers. So you don't just give loans to people who are going to university. I argued for this. I made a speech in Parliament years ago saying, why should only people who go to university get a loan? What if I don't want to go to university, but I live in the north and I want to do work experience in London? Why can't I get a loan in order to go and spend some time developing my career down there? And I think that's a really...
And Morgan, we'll end on that high note because it's not easy to get the approval of Philip Davis on a policy, so you've done well.
It's not often I find anyone who agrees with me on anything, to be perfectly honest. So to actually get some endorsement from a report for something I mentioned
Morgan, thank
years
you
ago,
very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Now, the Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning with snow and ice expected to blanket the UK this weekend.
Our South West of England reporter, Jeff Moody, has been on the road with the snow warden in Devon and sent us this report.
Loki. It's always a great moment when we first see snow. There's snowmen to build, snowballs to throw. But we've seen it now. Time to move on. Here in North Devon, we've only had an inch or two of snow, but the trouble is it's not going anywhere. The sun is too weak at this time of year to melt it, and during the evenings and at night, it gets icier and icier. This snow has been here a week. It's not going anywhere fast, and the Met Office say it's the wrong type of snow.
Often when we get snow, it's to do with milder air coming in from the Atlantic, and it's what we call transient snow. So it snows heavily, but then it clears away, or it doesn't certainly last too long. But because we've been in the cold air, it's not going to shift. Temperatures have been struggling to get above freezing by day and well below freezing at night. So it sticks around. It may melt a little bit through the day, and then that just makes things really icy and really treacherous. So it has been an unusually long, cold spell of weather.
They're calling it the Troll of Trondheim, and it's got a sting in its tail. Dozens of flights out of Glasgow have been cancelled or delayed. Similar scenes at other airports. Passengers stranded, long waits on the tarmac. In parts of Scotland, homes have been without power for nearly a week, and train services have been cancelled or delayed, piling more misery onto commuters already battling against strikes. Last week, in a single day, the RAC responded to 8 call-outs a minute. Monday, the busiest day ever, 12,000 call-outs as motorists struggled to get a grip. It's not so much the main roads, it's the B roads, the small lanes, the winding hills and valleys, the driveways. That's what's causing the problem, and it's that that's causing thousands of people to be trapped in their own homes. Again. Bill Geen is a parish councillor in North Malton, Devon. He's the council's designated snow warden. The council tackles the main roads. The smaller routes are left to the community.
We're a close community and we do what we can to help ourselves. We would like the county council to do more on some of the main roads and our more used routes, but we're going to lobby for that. But we do what we can.
This weekend, the Met Office says, brace yourselves for more. It'll get worse before it gets better. The advice for drivers, stay at home this weekend till the rain comes. Next week, the snow should melt, just in time for more strikes. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Now, the World Cup comes to a close tomorrow with Lionel Messi's Argentina taking on Mbappe's France in a much-anticipated final. But before that, it's a third-place playoff today with Morocco facing Croatia. Let's now head over to GB News reporter Paul Hawkins as his time in Qatar draws to an end. Paul, I don't know if there are any England fans still there, but I just wanted to know, it was obviously controversial having the World Cup in Qatar. What's been the experience of all the people who have been out there supporting their team?
Good. Generally good. Generally 98% will say it's been a very good experience. Number of reasons for that. A, no alcohol, no aggro, no tension. It's been an incredibly safe World Cup. No incidents whatsoever. Over the same period that this World Cup was happening in the UK, there were at least 500 arrests when England were playing. There's been no arrests here. There have been virtually no incidents. Some fans were upset, of course, that they couldn't take their rainbow hats into the stadium during the Wales game, but FIFA then changed their stance on that, and they were allowed to take them into the ground. But generally, the experience here has been very, very positive, and the main reason for that as well is because Qatar is such a tiny country. Right, the next World Cup is in the USA, Mexico, and Canada. This is the only World Cup for God knows how long, where you'll be able to go to multiple matches in one day over the course of 1 week. So to be able to flip between the stadiums and your hotel quickly and to get to different stadiums and different matches has been a real bonus of this World Cup. And as I said, safety is also another thing. So it's been an overwhelmingly positive experience, I'd say.
Can I ask you, Paul, what's your best memory of this World Cup?
I'd say it's probably, if we just aside from the football, probably my one strongest memory is in the first weekend or so when you saw. This is about two different kind of cultures coming together, isn't it? We think of football as being very as espousing Western values and Western culture. It's being held in a Middle East country, in an Islamic country, and seeing the fans from all around the world marching down here with their crazy masks and their flags and their horns and their chants and then the kind of very conservative culture here that they have. kind of just watching, bemused, but enjoying it and filming it. For me, seeing those two cultures come together made me think, actually, maybe this is why we should have a World Cup in places like this, because it does globalise football more.
The thing that struck me about watching the matches...
I'm wondering what's going on off the side there. There's lots of cheers and shouting. What's going on?
Well, do you want me to show... Yeah. I'll show you just very quickly. The third and fourth place match, right, which is happening this afternoon, Croatia against Morocco. A lot of people say it's the match that no one cares about. Have a look at this Moroccan flag. Let's just bring you in for a second. How big is this? How big is this flag?
This flag is about 1 square kilometre.
This flag's 1 square kilometre.
Yeah,
it looks
kilometre.
like it.
Yeah,
Have you signed it?
No, not yet, but we are going to sign it.
Right, OK, you're live, by the way, on TV in the UK, on GB News.
UK, hi, the UK. We are sorry about your game against France, but...
So am I, mate, so am I. So have you... And you've signed this, have you?
Yeah, we are going to sign it. I think a lot of fans have already signed.
Great.
And we are ready for the game of tonight.
Yeah.
I hope we will win.
Yeah.
But if we don't win, I think we accomplished a wonderful World Cup. We can be proud of our American player, of our American fans, and we can be proud of Morocco.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Cheers, mate. Thank you. So they're a bit excited about the match that no one really cares about. They really care about. They really want to finish third at this World Cup. So it's going to be really good watching Morocco play Croatia later. And for Croatia, the players were their best player, 37 years old. It's his last World Cup. It'll be fascinating to watch how Croatia bow out of this World Cup as well. But yeah, it's all about Morocco here right now.
Paul, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to the party.
I just wondered if he was going to give us a prediction.
Well, he's going to predict that Morocco. He's going to predict that Morocco's going to win. He dared do otherwise.
Very, very quickly, who's going to win the World Cup?
The third and fourth place match this up. The World Cup.
No,
okay.
the one.
I'm going to go for. I'm a romantic, so I'm going to go for Argentina. Lionel Messi, last chance to become one of the absolute
Thank you very much indeed. You heard it here, Argentina. Thank you very much.
I've never seen. There's thousands of Argentinian fans in Qatar, aren't there? It's miles away, and yet it's absolutely packed.
But coming up today, the government is launching a brand new campaign called It All Adds Up, and it's all about what you can save on your money energy bills. So don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Good morning and welcome back to Saturday Morning with Esther and Phil. Coming up this hour, we've got a new government campaign that starts today. It all adds up. How to save hundreds of pounds on your energy bills. We've got a minister in the studio to talk about that.
We're going to speak to Dr. Liam Fox, the former Secretary of State for International Trade, and he's going to tell us why he thinks that department should be abolished.
And Belinda Love-Ryder, staying friends over Christmas time. Can you do that, or do you fall out on Christmas Day?
And we're also going to be speaking to national treasure, football manager legend Harry Redknapp about his autobiography When Harry Met Sandra. We might even ask him about the World Cup too.
And we've got the wonderful Kevin Woodford and Sean Bailey here to look at what's happening in the papers too. But keep those views coming in. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. But here with your latest news headlines is Ray.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 11. Here's the latest. NHS bosses are urging hospitals to free up beds ahead of planned industrial action by ambulance crews in England. They say it's vital the government and unions talk urgently to resolve the pay dispute before the first day of action on the 21st of December. It comes after NHS data showed that 1 in 6 patients are now waiting more than an hour to be transferred from ambulance staff to A&E teams. Meanwhile, the head of Cancer Research UK is warning that NHS strikes are putting survival rates at risk, with wait times already critical. The Nurses Union is warning that the Health Secretary's macho negotiating style is hindering efforts to resolve their pay dispute. RCN General Secretary Pat Cullen says Steve Barclay undervalues the work of nurses because it's a 90% female profession. She's urging the Prime Minister to step in before the dispute engulfs the NHS. Commuters are facing more travel delays today as members of the RMT Rail Union continue their 48-hour strike. Trains are starting later than usual and finishing earlier, with some parts of the country having no service at all. Bus drivers in London are also continuing their 48-hour strike, adding to the travel disruption. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall told GB News there's currently no end in sight.
As we've seen all too regularly, whenever there are negotiations, especially with the rail unions, it never comes out in a good way. Whatever is offered by the government is sneered at as derisory and isn't going to hit the mark. So you do wonder, what is the number that Mick Lynch has in mind? What would he accept and what the country can afford? But it's quite clear that something needs to happen because the country is pretty much now ground to a halt.
More than a quarter of people expect to start the new year in debt. According to research by Tesco Bank, most believe it will take around 21 months to pay back what they owe. Those surveyed say they've borrowed money from families and friends and used overdrafts to cover energy bills and rent. GB News viewer Jess Barclay told us her family have had to work really hard to keep their finances in order.
with the year that we've had personally. We've had work issues. I've had health issues. At one point, the doctors wanted to sign me off work completely, and I was like, I can't do that. Now, moving forward, I want to make sure that my family is financially crisis-proof as much as it can be, and that we've got a really good buffer.
Police say a man and a woman arrested after 2 young boys were found dead in East London were known to the children. Emergency services were called to Cornwallis Road in Dagenham yesterday, where they discovered the boys aged 2 and 5. Both were already deceased. The man and woman were arrested separately in nearby locations and remain in custody. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings and is expecting ice for much of Scotland, the north and southwest and Wales today. It comes as blizzards are set to sweep across the north of the country this weekend. Temperatures could temporarily rise on Sunday. However, frost is expected to create difficult road conditions. Fine Gael leader Leo Varadkar is now Irish Taoiseach again. He's replacing Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin as part of the rotating Taoiseach agreement within Ireland's coalition government. Mr Varadkar previously held the office from 2017 to 2020. The committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riots is reportedly preparing to vote on 3 criminal charges against Donald Trump. If passed, they'll urge the US Justice Department to indict the former president with offences including insurrection. Discussions are also set to take place over what to do with Donald Trump's tax returns, which were obtained last month. And Harry and Meghan will be invited to the King's coronation in May next year, according to the Daily Telegraph newspaper. That's despite the pair making damaging claims levelled at the royal family in their Netflix documentary series. The newspaper says the guest list is yet to be decided, but all family members are welcome. You're watching GB News. The People's Channel will bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Esther and Philip.
Thanks, Ray, and welcome back. We're joined again in the studio by Sean Bailey and Kevin Woodford. And it's amazing who is watching GB News in this show in the morning. Listen to this one, Kevin. Mark called in to say, just a quick email, whilst Kevin's on air, he was my lecturer at Clarendon College in Nottingham circa 1980. What a story was then and still is. Please say a big hello from me. It's 42 years since I last saw you, and he's still at the top there, and he was a top lecturer. I thought I'd say that.
Thank you.
And Gary, not to feel shortchanged there, Sean, Gary, I think Sean is absolutely right. The mainly left-wing press are using this to bash the government. Don't you think? I do at the moment if Starmer gets into number 10, but what he's saying is you're absolutely on the button with what you're saying.
So, what have you got for us at this hour, Sean?
I've got the nurses' strike because I think it's one of the real signifiers as where we are as a country. So the government have been accused of not negotiating, but yet the PM saying the door is always open. You have people like Sir Robert Buckland who's saying the government are thumping their chest, taking on the unions. You then have the nurses' union saying things like they are undervalued because they're women. And I think actually it's a very complicated problem that's not being helped by either side. I wonder if anybody else has challenged the nurses' union to have a slightly more moderate form of language in the public arena, and also to look at, so they've been offered 4.3% and they want 19%. And there's got to be some sort of median ground.
Big gap, isn't it?
It's a colossal gap.
Hitting on something you said there, Steve Barclay, who is the Secretary of State of Health, was somewhat taken aback and shocked that people were levelling misogyny at him and bullying at him, something that he said he wasn't. And was this a sort of a new tactic, like he wouldn't understand our plight?
It's all designed. So what the left have done largely, they've named Tories and then attached all kinds of madness to them so that person has to acquiesce in any way. And that's why I say nobody sits at home thinking the nurses are making millions. Of course they're not. But when their leadership speaks in this way, I think it makes their ask as much political as it does financial. And I think if she's really about getting a decent pay settlement for her members, she needs to step back and just make it about the pay settlement, not about political jibes. And anybody striking now, and here's why I bring in the RMT, it feels a little bit coordinated against the government and the public, because in all of these discussions, none of the unions have pointed out the government doesn't have a penny. It's the public who pays. It's us who pays. And I think all of this now will lead to a big conversation. What can we actually afford for public services? Because we've given the NHS an awful lot of money. Is it them who should be paying the nurses more? That's a question that needs to be asked.
Of course, any pay rise would come out of the NHS budget, so it would mean there'd be less money for operations.
Exactly, but it needs to be looked at in a balance.
Read Les here, one of our viewers, said the nurses do an amazing job, but the country cannot afford the 19% pay increase. The country has to recover financially from the COVID lockdowns. If they're 32k, then it's a lot more than people who are not on strike and are earning less. So along with your points.
Annette says public sector workers do work hard and provide a valuable service, but no more so than lots of other workers like refuse collectors, farm workers, shop workers. The average nurse or paramedic is paid higher than the national average wage, is in guaranteed employment, has excellent holiday entitlements, pension rights and sickness benefits, so I do not believe they are a special case. So interesting views there.
Story from you?
Yeah, well, there's always this debate over the last few years with regards to statues. You know, and I don't want to get into that whole sort of woke political thing, but, you know, I know the Isle of Man, for example, we've got a lovely statue of Norman Wisdom and the Bee Gees because they were born there.
Couldn't offend anybody, Norman Wisdom.
He couldn't, no, except my wife, because he tried to kiss her too often. True. But anyway, there's a lovely little village in Worcestershire, and it's called Bell End. And they're lovely people. What they've done is they've created a little statue of a penis-headed Putin, right? So it is a statue of Putin, but it looks a bit like a penis, which I could argue he probably does anyway. And they've done this to commemorate him as Bell End of the Year, right? And what they do in the village, which is fantastic, it's only a little statue, but it's very nice, very, very nice. They put a box of eggs near the statue, and as you go past, you pick up an egg and you throw it at this statue, right? I think it's a great idea. But I wonder, is this one of those statues that people are going to take offence at and possibly sort of get rid of it at some point?
Well, it's OK, they just throw an egg at it. If they're offended, just throw an egg.
You can guarantee people take offence. We live in the age of offence. There's people whose profession is offence.
Yeah, you're right.
You can see it written all over the newspapers. Look, if you have a little village and you want to bring some attention to it, it's often hard, and this seems like as good a way as any. I personally would prefer a less graphic statue, because you might have to wonder a little child past that, and, you know, they ask that awkward question, what's that, Daddy? but other than that, yeah, why not? It's a bit of fun.
They'll probably come under pressure to change the name of the village, I would have thought soon.
I would imagine so. I'm sure there were lots of problems when they erected it.
Oh, no.
Gets worse.
Yeah,
No, go on, Phil.
No, you go.
OK, well, mine's again on the NHS, slightly different angle here. It's in the Telegraph today, and it's even Labour knows the NHS is failing, so why will no one admit we need a new model? And this is Juliet Samuel, and I thought this was quite interesting. She gave all the facts and figures. The NHS has more staff per patient than ever before, and yet number of patients being treated is going down. Staff is up 8% in 3 years. Yes, there's still vacancies to be filled. And when you're looking at the funding, it's not underfunded. It's got like 10.2% of GDP, which is the same as 18 sort of other advanced nations. But it's the problem that we've got more and more staff in there, more and more money going into there, but less and less output from there. So there is a problem. And junior doctors, whose numbers are risen by 15% since 2019, are saying, oh, stress levels, it's difficult, you know, people turning over jobs. But this is the issue. And yet at the same time, so we've got this story, one in the Times that said, really upset people because you've got NHS staff under pressure and is hiring £115,000 for somebody, a chief who's got lived experience. So you can see massive organisation, 1.3 million.
What does that actually mean, lived experience?
Well, lived, it said experience with power imbalances. To bring to the job for £115,000. So that's not a nurse, that's not a doctor.
That's ridiculous. Anybody could talk about power imbalances. I might be shorter than you, I might be a woman, I might be black, I might be disabled. That's nonsense. What you're seeing here is we're in a public discourse now where you can't ask people to work hard. The other addendum to that a tangential story, is the civil service now trying to have the law change so that they can all work from home. So their salaries will go up, their pensions will go up, their performance will go down, and we, the public, will be expected to pay for it. At some point, there's a reckoning coming down the line, and currently the Labour Party have made it all about the government. I wonder how they'll make about the government in the future, because at some point the people of this country will refuse to pay because they're being asked too much.
Now, one of the reasons why there might be the pressure on the NHS is page 24 of the Daily Star, which made me feel an awful lot better, because apparently more than 2/3 of English men are now overweight and a quarter are obese. Shocking figures reveal. About 25% of men are now classed as obese, compared to only 13% when the first survey was carried out in 1993. And the proportion of men who are overweight has shot up from 58% to 69% in the same time. And apparently particular weight problems are in people aged 45 to 54 and 65 to 74, where 73% of men in those age groups are carrying extra
So what
timber.
did you say? 2/3, did you say?
2/3 now. There's 3 of us here.
And
right?
and that isn't the case here, because there's only 1/3 overweight.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't think Kevin's that overweight.
No, I
think it was Kevin you were referring
Of course it was. The serious side of that, of course, is not the image of that individual who's overweight, it's the health aspects of it. And again, that puts added pressure on the NHS.
But it's nice for me to know that when Esther has a go at me every day for being overweight, it's nice for me to know that I'm not on my own. There are other people out there.
It's snacking. Every time I go in the little supermarket locally, when I walk, I have to blink at myself to go and say, because it's all very brightly lit, it's all appealing, and it's all adding to your waistline. We're a country.
It's right by the till.
We're a country of snackers. That's what.
And it is, in Christmas time, is a time for snacking.
Absolutely.
Thank you both very much indeed, Kevin. Sean, have you on any time, so I hope to see you back here in the new year.
Now, former Cabinet Minister Liam Fox has said that the Department for International Trade should be scrapped, which is somewhat of a surprise, given that he was the first ever Secretary of State for that department and therefore set it up. He joins us now. Liam, thank you for joining us this morning. Why? I mean, you were there, you set it up, you were the first Secretary of State. Why should it be scrapped?
Well, I didn't say it should be scrapped. What I really meant was it should be upgraded. And we need to have a proper economic department that takes the advantages post-Brexit. And much of Whitehall, almost all of Whitehall, in fact, is still shaped the same way as it was before we left the European Union, as though nothing had happened. Of course, a lot of the civil service would like to think that nothing did happen. We set up the Department for International Trade to make Britain ready for the point that we left the European Union, but it needs to go further than that now. And I think that BEIS, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy that we don't have anymore, is not really in a fit place for what's required of it. So I would like to see energy taken out of BEIS, where I've always thought it was misplaced, given that it's involved with energy security and a whole range of environmental issues, and then create a business, trade and investment department. I would bring all of the functions of inward and outward investment into that department, and I would actually bring the digital parts of what's currently DCMS into that department too, and create a proper outward-looking business department, business, investment and trade, that was looking to maximise the opportunities for us post-Brexit, because I think that the current strategy of Whitehall is too complacent.
The government always boasts about how many trade deals have been agreed since we left the EU and since the department was set up. And so why would you change something that the government seems to be saying is working very well?
Well, we were able to replicate the EU's trade agreements before we left the European Union. That's one of the main reasons why DIT was set up. Now we have to go further. And trade agreements are only a piece of paper if no one actually wants to export. We need to encourage British companies to export more. We're well behind some of our main competitors on that. As I was saying, and as we looked at in the Global Britain Commission, which I chair, if you're in countries in places like the Gulf, you're falling over French and German representatives trying to push their country's business. And I don't think that we give sufficient help to our businesses. I don't think we give enough encouragement to our exporters. We've identified hundreds of thousands of companies who could be exporting but are not, and that of course would generate a lot of wealth for the UK. And a lot of our debate, and I was listening to your previous debate, is about how we spend our money. There's very little debate about how we raise our money, how we create more
But
wealth
lots of
in this
people are saying, Liam, have we seen any of that Brexit dividend? Lots of people who are watching this programme now say we voted for Brexit because we wanted to see growth, we wanted to see exports. Have we seen enough? When's that going to come?
Well, of course, a lot of trade has been massively interrupted by the pandemic, and it's quite difficult to read international trade statistics. There's a lot of problems still in the global economy that really result from supply chain disruption. Some of that's now settling in maritime availability. That's now settling. Britain's actually been better at selling post-Brexit into the European Union than the European Union has been to us. Our exports to the European Union have been at an all-time high. But we do need to be looking to see how we encourage more British companies to export. And we need to find ways to help them do that. Every time a company exports, it makes the company more viable, it makes it more profitable, generates more profit and more taxes, which of course help with the rest of our economic problems.
And that's what our viewers want to see now. You know, we voted for it a long time ago, you know, where's it go? Now, look, something else which we've been talking about all morning, in fact, the station's been talking about all week, and this has been the strike action that's going on. Obviously, Dr. Liam Fox, that's what you were, a GP. So my question to you is, would you be somebody going on strike now? Do you have sympathy for nurses going on strike? What would you be doing?
I have sympathy for nurses, but not for going on strike. And I think that we need to look at some of the wider problems in the NHS, and I think that we need to look at what people would call technically the flow problem, and something that Steve Barclay, I have to say, has been more on top of than any of the previous health secretaries I've known. And one of our problems is that we have so many people occupying acute beds in acute hospitals, which are very expensive, very intensive for staff, and they really don't need to be there. We need, in my view, to go back to our concept of convalescent hospitals. And I think that we need to ensure that people are getting the appropriate care, because if you've got people occupying those acute beds who don't need to be there, it doesn't matter how much money you pour into the system, you're not going to get the output that's appropriate for that. So I would like to see us develop a system of convalescent care. And actually, Esther, I would use it in two ways, because there's a lot of evidence that if you give older patients, for example, a very good high-protein diet before they come into hospital, then the recovery times are very much quicker for things like surgery. So I think the answers to the NHS don't lie in spending vast amounts of money on management. I think it lies in the medicine and getting the appropriate care for the appropriate patients. And if we move to some of that convalescent care, it's less staff-intensive. It gives the patients the right level of care. And, you know, with older patients, remember, they may have many
Dr. Liam Fox,
illnesses at the same time.
we're going to have to go to the break, but am I right in saying you wouldn't be striking? Yes or no?
No.
No, definitely
Quite
wouldn't.
right.
Thank you very much indeed for coming on the show today. Now, coming up, a government campaign launched today, and it's called It All Adds Up. And it's looking how you can save hundreds of pounds of years on your energy bills. Well, we'll be joined by a minister after this short break.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News.
Frank,
fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:25. Lots of you have been getting in touch here. Eileen, I should say, says, the unions are trying to bring the government down, pure and simple. People are forgetting the pandemic and all the handouts people got to keep them in their jobs.
And Neil said, as a former Stroud resident, how sad I was to learn of the behaviour towards Siobhan Bailey, the local MP. You remember she was the one who took maternity leave and got lots of abuse. People who hide behind the anonymity of social media should be held to account. I do think there is a case for another MP to buddy up with an MP on maternity leave and represent them in Parliament with the permission of Mr Speaker in advance.
And of course, we've been talking about the strike action and the nurses on strike. Chris says here they will drive the NHS private by their actions. It's not just the day-to-day pay, it's the increases in pensions related to increased pay going forward. It's a burden for future generations to cover the costs. Thank you very much.
And a bit of a backlash to the Adam Smith Institute, who wanted to target pensioners in order to benefit the young.
I did ask him.
There has been quite a lot of comments about that. Alan says, as the UK has the lowest state pension in Europe and the age of retirement is rising every year, the idea that pensioners should be targeted is pathetic. The younger generation have more money, more opportunity and a higher standard of living than my generation ever had. If the government wants to save money, then all civil service pay should be capped at £75,000.
Yeah, I did ask her what her parents or her grandparents thought. She didn't answer that question, did she?
So, there you go. Now, an energy-saving campaign launched today by the government will give advice that could help UK households cut hundreds of pounds off their bills this winter. To tell us more, we're now joined in the studio by Minister of State for Energy and Climate, Graham Stewart. Graham, thank you very much for joining us. So, how are our viewers going to save...
Well, he's got his jumper on straight away, hasn't he?
That's saving him some money.
Definitely trying to keep warm.
How are our viewers going to save money? What top tips have you got for them?
Well, what we've got is some basic things which don't cost anything. Don't change the temperature in your house. So you can... The most obvious one, though I hadn't heard of it before I became Minister for Energy, shameful, is that the boiler temperature is the heat to which the boiler heats the water before it comes through your system is often set at maximum around 80 degrees. And if you turn it to 60, your house will stay just as warm, but you'll save about £100 a year. So that's actually in the boiler itself, to turn that, they call it the flow temperature down to around 60
Now,
degrees.
you're quite right, lots of people didn't know that.
I didn't know
Basically,
that.
it's overly heated. So my question, have the government on their on-sort-of-line website, have they put sort of pictures so you know what you're doing, or do they just say link to something so you find out how to do it? Lots of people don't know how it's done.
That's a very good question. So I looked at the website myself this morning, looked through the things. I didn't see quite how practical it got, but I think as soon as people are onto it, they should be able to find out. But I guess it will also depend on the particular model. Yeah. But it's a relatively, as I understand it, it's a relatively straightforward...
An easy thing to upload onto your Twitter feed, that. Just show people how it's done, because lots of people don't know.
Exactly. And I mean, the campaign's called It All Adds Up, because it does all add up. So that would save a typical family about £100. Just put some draft proofing in, you can save £60 or £70. And what I do have to say is look up to my dad and say sorry, because he used to drive me and my sister mad. We'd go around, turn the television on, my dad had not only switched it off at the plug, he pulled the thing out. And one of the things you can do is to switch off at the plug. So a lot of the, perhaps not the television, don't know, up to you, but lots of apparatus around the house that you can switch off at the plug. And that can save another 60 or 70 pounds a year. So if you think of between those, just those 2 or 3 things, you're saving more than £200 a year. And if with GBNews' power, if you think about it, say 1 million people, as we push this campaign out to make those changes, then you're talking 200 million pounds a year being saved, not only saving families at a time when they need to save the money, but actually saving the government money, because about 1/3 of household energy bills this winter are being paid for by the government, and helping energy security as well, because if we're using less, we're importing less.
So my question to you, which ones will you be doing and which ones are going to be important in your household this Christmas time?
Well, I've got an air source heat pump. So if you look, if you look on gov.uk, you can find household help there, something we've had for some time. Then this It All Adds Up campaign. You can find out about air source heat pumps, for instance, which I've got at my house. Which,
so there's not a draft excluder going on your door, then, your front door? You're not getting one of those long Dalmatians that fit on the door, or a snake?
One of those long snakes. Yeah, well, my boss, Grant Shapps, does have one of those. and if you look on Twitter, you can find his elf on the shelf that seems to go around moving it all the time. So it's important to do that sort of thing and save money. And so it's just making sure that perhaps rooms, that if you've got a room you hardly ever use, then just turn the radiator down a little bit in that room, not in the main living areas, but all these things add up. And if we can save hundreds of millions of pounds, not only this year, one of the positive things about this, we've got to find positives out of all this, is that long term, if we make that a habit, then actually the country will be saving money, families will be saving money at a time when they need it most. And of course, these interventions come on top of the as I say, the subsidy of people's energy bills. So this isn't because you were frightened there could have been a blackout or we weren't going to have enough energy for the country? Is this why this has come forward? No, it's just to save families money. We have one of the most resilient and diverse energy bases in Europe. And the reason that we have less storage, for instance, gas storage, than European countries is they don't have enough supply coming in to get them through a winter. So they actually rely on storage as part of their basic supply. We don't. We have enough coming in from our own North Sea, from Norway, from liquid natural gas. We've got the second largest capacity for that. So we're in a strong position, but obviously, you're always watching out. We're also interconnected with our neighbours. So I met with the Belgian energy minister on Sunday. We have both electricity and gas connections with them. That makes them more resilient, makes us more resilient, and helps keep bills down.
One of the concerns that people have is that we've put sort of so much into wind energy, and we've just seen with this cold snap, there's been a wind drought, and lots of people are saying, look, the government's putting this ideological drive to net zero ahead of actually energy security and making sure that we've got enough energy. What would you say to people who say that?
Well, I'd say, I know you say that, Philip.
I do say that.
It's a relatively...
Well, before you go further, lots of our viewers say that.
They do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, one of the things is about our system is it is resilient. So even when you get to... it's a classic case in the peak of the winter, you can have very still, very cold days, and likewise, you can have very still days in the peak of summer. And yet we have a system which is able to be resilient. But it's great that we've got more and more wind coming on. The broader we spread it, the more efficiently the turbines become, the lower the cost. And they are now among the lowest cost electricity we can have. But we have a system, a dynamic system, that means that we can pick up and replace it when required. So I'm all behind wind, all behind renewables, all behind reducing emissions, and doing so in a way which long-term will make us competitive.
Just give me a figure, a percentage figure. What percentage chance of energy blackouts this winter or energy rationing? What percentage?
It's highly unlikely, according to the National Grid. Highly unlikely. So, we have really good systems in place.
But possible?
Everything's always possible, which is why, as a government minister, you can't rule it out. But we have a very strong system. And it's interesting to note we're interconnected with Europe. They have pretty full gas stores right now.
Thank you very much indeed. It all adds up. But coming up, how do you keep the romantic flame alive during the Christmas period? With all that stress that comes with Christmas, we'll be joined by a love guru after your latest headlines with the Love God, Ren.
chocolates work quite well. 11:33, here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. NHS bosses are urging hospitals to free up beds ahead of planned industrial action by ambulance crews in England. They say it's vital that the government and unions talk urgently to resolve the pay dispute before the first day of action on the 21st of December. It comes after NHS data showed 1 in 6 patients are now waiting more than an hour to be transferred from ambulances to A&E. The Nurses' Union is warning that the Health Secretary's macho negotiating style is hindering efforts to resolve their pay dispute. RCN General Secretary Pat Cullen says Steve Barclay undervalues the work of nurses because it's a 90% female profession. She's urging the PM to step in before the dispute engulfs the NHS. More than a quarter of people expect to start the new year in debt. According to research by Tesco Bank, most believe it will take around 21 months to pay back what they owe. Those surveyed say they've borrowed money from family and friends and used overdrafts to cover energy bills and rent. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings and is expecting ice for much of Scotland, the north and southwest, and Wales. It comes as blizzards are set to sweep across the north of the country. Temperatures could temporarily rise on Sunday. However, frost is expected to create difficult road conditions. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be invited to the King's coronation in May next year. That's according to the Daily Telegraph newspaper. That's despite Harry and Meghan making damaging claims levelled at the royal family in their Netflix documentary series. The newspaper says the guest list is yet to be decided, but all family members are welcome. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, you're watching the People's Channel, GB News. Back to Esther and Phil in just a moment.
Thank you, Ray. Lots of you have been getting in touch this morning. Esther?
I said, Anna here, I don't think you can take away the triple lock from pensioners now, but you might start preparing the next generation, who are maybe only 30 now, to get prepared for their pension.
Lots and lots of people have been talking about the fear from the Adam Smith Institute of trying to target pensioners. Joan says, my pension is not a benefit. It's my money. I paid in for over 55 years. I will be dead before I get back what I paid in. So I get very annoyed. It doesn't matter what I've got in the bank. It's still my money they've got. And lots of people have been saying exactly what Joan has been saying there.
And that's why I said intergenerational fairness, yes, but what you don't want to do is pitch one group against the other. It's how does it, you spread things.
Well, when people have paid in for all the years, to then say, oh, by the way, we're now going to means test it, I think that would be completely unacceptable, don't you?
Absolutely. Anyway, Christmas is the time to spend with your nearest and dearest. A time to relax and share gifts with those closest to our hearts.
But it can also be a time of great stress and strain for relationships, buying the perfect presents. Have you bought me a present yet?
I haven't, it's a perfect one.
Really? Impressing the in-laws and being romantic after eating a kilo of sprouts. Join us now to look at the best ways of lessening festive rows is the relationship guru Belinda Love Rigier. Belinda, thank you for joining us. It's, obviously Christmas is a great time, isn't it? But it's also, a time of family rows,
fallouts,
breakups and whatever. So what's the secret to having a successful family Christmas without all the usual rows?
Well, I think the two main stresses would be time and money. And I believe that if we are associating expectations around perfectionism for those two things, that will cause a lot of stress, arguments and breakdowns. So my suggestion or opinion or recommendation is to remove those expectations and actually remember the true meaning of Christmas, which is love. And I know with the cost of living rising, everybody's worried about money and buying the perfect present, as you both just discussed. I believe that if you look at that person's love language, your partner's love language, and gift them in that love language, that will be a perfect gift.
OK, we're still trying to fathom out our love language.
Well, I'm just thinking, am I right in thinking, because as a Yorkshireman, this is quite important to me, am I right in taking from what you've just said that I don't even need to worry about buying a present? I don't need to worry about it. As long as I say nice things to Esther, she can do without a present. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think she did at all. I've got some stats on this. Go on, but we'll hear from you, Belinda.
I want to know, do I not need to buy a present?
I hope I'm not causing a row right now. It sounds like Esther's love language might be gifts, actually, and your love language might be words of affirmation. So maybe you can write a beautiful love letter or gift each other something that's romantic, like a massage, or give one another a massage. You don't have to spend so much money on presents.
Yeah, I think I'll buy a present. After all that, Belinda, I think I'm just going to buy a present.
I'll be expecting a perfect poem to be written by him. But equally, I did see stats, 1 in 10 people said it would end their relationship if they didn't get a present for Christmas. So unless you're trying to end your relationship, buy a present. So what else? Are there sort of key phrases you should or should not say? Or should you aim to compliment rather than to criticise maybe the Christmas dinner or way the tree is decorated?
Yes, I think communication is a huge part of having a successful Christmas. And I think one person's perfection is not necessarily the same as another person's perfection, and which is why we should communicate about what we want. If you say to your partner, "Oh, just get me anything, I'll love what you buy me," and then they buy you something that's not right, then I really think you're setting yourself up for failure. So dropping little hints, writing a list, and setting a budget and saying, look, I'll be happy with one of these presents, and making it special rather than having that expectation of the perfect present. You share what it is that you want, and then you're setting yourself up for success.
With Belinda, I'll tell you what we actually do. We get loads of little fun presents to put under the Christmas tree. So there's just lots of opening up of probably nothingness, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we have great fun just opening the gifts. And then there's nothing there that you'll be disappointed with. You'll be disappointed with it all. But it's just the fun of the day.
And opening something.
I think also... I was just going to say, I think also creating traditions together, because we can be in that rush leading up to Christmas. We're trying to get all of the presents by a certain date. Why not do it together? Sit down, make a night where you wrap the presents together, not obviously each other's, the family's presents. You can create new traditions like making gifts like gingerbread men, and do it together. So not only are you spending time together, you're doing it inexpensively, and you're creating gifts that you can gift others.
Belinda, thank you so much for your advice. You'll see how we get on. We'll see you in the new year to see how it works out for us. And in the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you very much for joining us.
Belinda's given me a cracking idea there. As we make the Christmas dinner, doing the things together, you can be peeling the potatoes, you can be peeling the carrots. You see what I mean? We can do this together.
Are you going to be doing anything?
I'm doing the cauliflower cheese and everything else, and the sprouts and everything, Anyway, coming up, we'll be joined by football manager legend Harry Redknapp to discuss his book, When Harry Met Sandra. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back, it's 11:45. Now, it's fair to say our next guest is a national treasure, having managed some of the biggest football teams in the country.
His stint in the I'm a Celebrity jungle in 2018 propelled him and his wife Sandra into the spotlight, with viewers instantly falling in love with the couple. And Harry has just released a book titled When Harry Met Sandra, more than 50 years of marriage, love, life and strife, and we're delighted to say that he joins us now. Harry, great to have you here. I just want to know, how did you meet? How did you meet Sandra? And did you know it was going to last all this time?
Well, really unromantic when we met, really. We met at, back in the day, we were just 17. They used to have a little dance on a Sunday night, a little dance hall above a pub called the Two Puddings in the East End of London in Stratford. Not a very romantic name, the Two Puddings. I think that was me and Sandra. Anyway, we met, that's where we met, upstairs. They used to have like a little dance, and I went there with a mate of mine who was playing at West Ham with me at the time. We were just two young footballers, you know, trying to make our way into the first team. And then we went there, yeah, and Sandra was with a friend, and we had a dance, and that was it, really. And yeah, that would have been probably like, I don't know, 59 years ago now.
Wow. Oh.
Well, we hope that the book's a great success, Harry, and I'm sure it's available at all good bookshops and bad bookshops as well. It's available at all bookshops, so I hope people will buy it. I wanted to ask you, Harry. Obviously, the World Cup's drawing to a close. As a football nut, I wanted to ask you about Gareth Southgate. Is it time? I've been banging on for ages that I think that England's got the best football team and they've got the worst manager, and that if France had Southgate managing them and England had Deschamps managing them, we'd be in the World Cup final. What's your view? Is it time for Gareth Southgate to go?
I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not sitting here saying. I think everyone got carried away how fantastic we've done. We've got a great group of players. I think we've got the best. We had the best squad of players in the tournament. We should have won the Euros, really, at home at Wembley in England. We get beat in the final. The World Cup before, I felt the draw was fantastic for us. We ended up in the great half of the draw, and then we get beat by Croatia in the semi-final. We've had great chances to win a tournament, really. If Gareth goes, whoever takes that job has got a great chance to be successful, because it's an amazing squad of players. So many good young players coming through that I don't think he will leave. I think he'll think to himself, surely I've got to win something with this group. If he doesn't, it'll be a big failure.
Can I ask you something? Because I'm a big penalties fan. I'm the person who loves it. I know footballers won't like that when it's going to the penalties at the end, but I love it. And I'm just wondering, you know, for Harry Kane there to have missed a penalty at a key sort of time, did you reach out to him? Because he would have been, I could see the picture when he's chewing on his shirt. He must have felt like the world had collapsed. Did you get in touch with him and say, look, it's all right, you can get over this?
I haven't yet, no, but I will speak to Harry at some stage, you know, but he's an amazing professional. I mean, he just is a special footballer, a special bloke. He's so dedicated. He'll get over that, you know. He's a strong character. He's one of those. He'll just get on with it. Next week he'll come out and penalty for Tottenham. He'll take.
I mean, Harry, how you've managed some of the biggest clubs in the country. You've managed some of the biggest players in the Premier League. How difficult is it to manage a team full of massive egos?
It's not easy, obviously. I think it's getting tougher. It's certainly getting tougher. Since back in my day, the last few years, I can see a big change. Agents are having more control over players and teams and chairmen, and it's certainly getting harder. So you've got to handle them with kid gloves now. I think you mustn't upset them, because I think they'll go and tell their agent, who'll ring your chairman, and oh my God, it's not easy, believe you me.
Harry, it's...
And we've got Aidan McGee in the studio with us, who's our sports commentator. Aidan, I know you've got a question.
Yeah, Harry, I just wanted to see how
Aidan, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Harry. Nice to see you again. I just want to ask you about tomorrow's game, if I can, because I can't think of a tighter final, probably since about '94 when Italy played Brazil.
Yeah. Well, I've had a feeling, Aidan, from the start. I must be honest, I fancied Argentina. I just had this feeling it was written in the stars. Messi is going to finish his World Cup, you know, playing in the World Cup. He's going to end up winning the World Cup. He's going to be leading goal scorer. He's going to win the Golden Boot. It's going to be Messi. And I just got a feeling that's how it's going to finish. I can see everything going his way. In Argentina, him winning the Golden Boot, winning whatever, anything that's going. You know, I just got a feeling Argentina are going to do it.
Yeah, and Messi there, obviously amazing. Now, I thought I saw when Ronaldo, you know, when it was Portugal was out and Ronaldo was walking, I thought I saw him, I'd say in tears, because he was devastated he wasn't going to be there. Did you see that?
Yeah, of course, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought Portugal had a big chance. I went with both of them. I could see either one of them at the start. I must be honest, you know, obviously wanted England to win it. But I did have a feeling it was going to be I could see Portugal or Argentina, Messi and Ronaldo. It just, everything seemed to end up with them. You know, all the news was about Ronaldo and Messi, and I just felt one of them would win it this year. You know, Messi, I still think that Argentina would do it.
Harry Redknapp, football manager legend, national treasure, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and we wish you every success with the book, When Harry Met Sandra. If anyone's still looking for a Christmas present...
That'll be you for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done, guys. Have a great Christmas.
You can put one in the post for us, Harry. I can pass it on to Esther for a Christmas present. Who said romance was dead, eh? It's like being at the Two Puddings again.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Thank you very much. Brilliant.
Cheers, Harry.
But back in the studio here for all the latest showbiz news, sports news. Hayley Palmer, come on.
Yeah, I'm talking Strictly Final tonight. Bring it on. So all the contestants will be doing a dance of their choice, and the judges will pick a dance for them as well. I'm predicting Hamza to win. I love his story. He couldn't dance. He now can dance. From a technical point of view, dance teacher coming out here. When he reverses backwards, he doesn't put his heel on the floor. For me, that's why he's going to win, technically. So bring it on.
Is
Heard
it
it here
more
first.
important than the World Cup final? Is it the strictly
I
final?
haven't got over that. I am
Oh.
still devastated. I did say 2-1. I got it the wrong way round, admittedly. I'll stick to showbiz from now on, I think.
Well, Aidan said it would be decided on penalties, and he was right that it was decided by a penalty.
Yeah, not the penalties I was expecting, not the format I was expecting. But in terms of tomorrow, I mean, Harry's right, it's going to be an exciting game. My concern for France would be that they like the opposition to have the ball. They're happy to have concede possession, and I think Argentina, if you do that, if you give them possession, they've got one man in the middle who can really destroy you, and that's Messi. However, I think France are stronger all the way around their team, and I take them to win. Using my crystal ball, which is out there, by the way, I forgot to bring it in. I should sign it, really. I think France are going to win it in extra time.
I've got a crystal ball.
Well, I don't know. It's not bad. I've got a receipt in case it starts letting me down.
By the way, I should say a viewer last week said that we should bill you two as Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not very nice on Hayley, though.
No prizes for guessing who they had in mind each time. I'll just put it out there. Now, are you going to the Panto at all?
Yes, I went to the London Palladium Panto.
Oh,
which is
very
wonderful.
grand.
Oh, yes. It had Julian Clary and it had the lovely Dawn French. Oh, she was so funny. So, yeah, if you get a chance to go down and see that, it really does take your mind off everything.
I love the Panto. Are you a Panto?
Oh,
I haven't been to Panto since about 1990.
Oh, he's such a misery.
Yeah, no. Ken Dodd was in
Yeah.
Panto in Gravesend. The Woodville Hall's in Gravesend.
You should be in Panto.
You reckon?
Yeah.
To me, to you?
All your jokes that go down well.
Christmas telly coming up.
Oh, yes. OK, we have Strictly Special at 5:10 on Christmas Day. Also, there's a TV show called Britain Gets Singing, and it's like cast members from Love Island, Corrie, The Chase, and they're in choirs, and they're all going to compete against each other. We should have done a GB News one, shouldn't we?
Oh, I think GB News Panto.
GB News.
Yeah.
What are you, widow twanky?
I've got some decent outfits.
Any other shows we should be looking for?
Also, Amazon Prime, we've got some good films. The Holiday, which is my favourite. Elf, Love Actually, Home Alone. Get in the Christmas spirit. You've got to start watching all the films, haven't you? And obviously on Christmas Day, we've got Bake Off and The King's Speech, of course, at 3 o'clock, which will be
we'll all be at. And this World Cup. Lots of talk in advance. Oh, it shouldn't have been there. What's going on? So,
I mean, we spoke to Paul Hawkins earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
And he said the fans he'd been out there throughout.
Amazing.
He said the fans' experience has been brilliant.
Once the football took over, we didn't really look back. Once all the nonsense beforehand and even in the beginning of it, the virtual signallers, all the rest of it.
His words were, no alcohol, no aggro, really positive. Everybody
no arrests?
Together.
No arrests.
No arrests.
Yeah, no arrests for the first time ever. But very few arrests in Russia, by the way, where we had plenty of alcohol, so it's not all about England fans being unruly and misbehaving.
But the great thing that I've seen about it...
regimes, maybe that's something.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Strict regimes.
But the thing that's been great, I think, is how all the fans have been sat amongst each other. Rival fans have been sat in the stadium right amongst each other.
Well, that's a problem. It's going to be an issue.
No problem.
It's going to be an issue
England.
tomorrow for France because that's going to be overwhelmingly Argentina. They didn't seem to have a problem going to Qatar, even though it's like miles and miles and miles away. But they're going to be outnumbered. France, which is a bit closer, are going to be outnumbered tomorrow, and it could make a difference in terms of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And how it influences the outcome of the game, definitely.
It'd be like a home game for Argentina.
Without doubt, every game has. I mean, it's very similar to 1990 because remember they lost in their first game against Cameroon but got to the final. But I think this is with one man inspiring them. So I think, but that ended in defeat that time. I'm not convinced it will.
Okay, but we'll all be watching it then.
Yes,
by the telly.
Will you watch it?
Pint of whatever. Yeah, I've got to watch the final.
It's about time.
All right.
Argentina's going to win.
No, I'm saying France in extra time.
You're saying France?
In extra time.
I'm saying 3-2 France.
3-2 France. It's going to be an excellent. No wonder you're watching the game. I think Argentina.
I'm going for Argentina.
I thought all the way through Argentina would win, and I think
I want Argentina to win, but I think France will do extra time.
Anyway, you've heard it here. France, Argentina. We're going for Argentina. Anyway, look, what can I tell you? It's been a fantastic show. Thank you, Aidan. Thank you, Hayley. Brilliant. Don't forget, we've got next coming up is Alistair Stewart and friends. So don't go anywhere, and we'll see you next week.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up